It is the coldest, most isolated place on Earth and the least understood. Buried beneath Antarctica's endless ice lie structures, fossils and clues that could rewrite what we know about Earth's history and challenge our understanding of the ancient world. For centuries, Antarctica was nothing more than a blank space on ancient maps, an untouched, frozen world at the edge of civilization. Twice the size of Australia, larger than all of Europe, and holding 90% of the world's ice, Antarctica remains one of the least explored places on the planet. But as technology advanced and exploration deepened, something strange began to emerge. From ancient maps that show the continent without ice, to satellite images capturing shapes too symmetrical to be natural, Antarctica has become more than a land of snow and silence. Whispers of hidden research zones, forbidden discoveries, and unexplained sightings have only deepened the mystery. In this documentary, we explore what has been found on this continent, the stories passed down through history, and how they may connect to what lies beneath the ice. We'll examine the myths, the discoveries, and what makes it Earth's most mysterious and only forbidden continent. You'll hear the legends, see the evidence, and decide for yourself what Antarctica is truly hiding. In 2016, satellite images taken over the Ellsworth Mountains in Antarctica sparked a wave of curiosity. Hidden among the snow and ice, one peak in particular stood out, a mountain with 4 sharp faces and a pointed top. From above, it looked strikingly like the pyramids of Giza. This pyramid-shaped formation is located in the southern part of the Ellsworth Mountains, a remote range not far from the Patriot Hills research base. It stands around 4,150 feet tall and is clearly visible from aerial views. Geologists who have studied the region explain that what looks like a pyramid is most likely the result of natural processes. The mountain is what's known as a nunatak, a peak that sticks out above the ice. Over millions of years, strong winds, freezing temperatures, and cycles of thawing and refreezing have carved its faces into the sharp triangular shape we see today. This type of erosion, called freeze-thaw weathering, is common in cold regions, and it can create surprisingly regular shapes in stone. Similar pyramid-like peaks exist in places like the Swiss Alps, such as the famous Matterhorn. Still, the shape of the Antarctic pyramid is unusual. Most natural peaks with triangular sides have just 1 or 2 flat faces. This mountain appears to have 4, giving it a near-perfect geometric form. That's why some researchers and independent theorists believe it could be more than just a mountain. They suggest that the formation might have once been a human-made structure, possibly a pyramid, now buried under thick layers of ice. These ideas become even more interesting when compared to ancient pyramids in other parts of the world. The pyramids in Egypt, Mexico, and Peru all share similar designs: wide bases, sloping sides, and a strong alignment with cardinal directions. Some believe this pattern shows a shared understanding of architecture, possibly passed down from a single older source. Others suggest that early civilizations might have developed pyramid building independently, choosing this shape for practical reasons such as stability and symbolic power. A similar theory surrounds the Bosnian pyramids, where some believe large hills may be hiding the remains of stepped pyramids built in prehistoric times. Though mainstream archaeologists reject these claims, supporters point to the smooth slopes and aligned corners as possible signs of artificial design. The same arguments are now being applied to parts of the Ellsworth Mountains. Observers claim that some of the nearby ridges and snow-covered hills may also hide pyramid-like shapes. On satellite images, several peaks appear to have near-symmetrical lines and square bases. What makes the Antarctic formation so mysterious for scientists is the difficulty of access. The continent is covered by a massive sheet of ice, more than a mile thick in some areas. Only a small portion of the land is visible from the surface. Harsh weather, remote location, and international regulations make large-scale exploration nearly impossible. That's why the full story behind these formations remains hidden. In recent years, satellite technology has allowed scientists and researchers to observe Antarctica in greater detail than ever before. These high-altitude images have revealed more strange features scattered across the icy surface. Among them are large, dark shapes resembling doorways carved into mountain slopes, and even patterns that look like man-made stairs. These discoveries have puzzled many and sparked numerous discussions among researchers and theorists alike. One of the most talked about formations appears near a remote area of East Antarctica. There, a large rectangular opening is clearly visible. It is positioned along a rock face, surrounded by thick layers of snow and ice. The shape of the opening is unusually clean and geometric, with sharp lines that make it appear different from the surrounding natural landscape. The structure stands out due to its symmetry, straight edges, and shadowed interior. Some have estimated that this doorway is several meters tall and wide, which is large enough to allow the entry of a full-sized aircraft. Experts in glaciology have offered natural explanations. They believe that such openings could be formed by the gradual movement of ice around rock formations combined with strong winds and temperature changes. Over time, melting and refreezing can create gaps in the ice. When the snow shifts, these gaps may take on geometric appearances. Other scientists suggest that the supposed doorway may simply be the top of a ridge, exposed as ice levels lowered due to melting. Another puzzling discovery is found on one of the southernmost islands near the Antarctic coast. A wide cave entrance was recorded, positioned at the base of a snow-covered mountain. The dark interior of the cave makes it impossible to see what lies inside, but what surrounds the entrance is even more curious. At the base of the slope, several dark horizontal lines are visible. They run parallel to each other and rise gradually, creating the appearance of a staircase leading into the mountain. This stair-like formation is difficult to explain by current geological models. The natural layering of snow or rock does not usually create such clean, step-like platforms. Some have speculated that these shapes could be the result of ancient collapses or uneven melting patterns. However, their even spacing and straight design suggest a more complex origin. The idea that such formations could be natural continues to be debated. What adds to the mystery is how some of these features seem to change over time. In some years, the openings and steps are clearly visible. In others, they seem to vanish beneath new layers of snow. Then, after strong winds or seasonal shifts, they reappear, sometimes with different shapes or added detail. But in the distant past, Antarctica was not the frozen desert we know today. Long before it became a land of endless ice and howling winds, this continent may have been a place of forests, rivers, and life. A growing body of scientific evidence now points to a different image of this mysterious land, one that fuels both wonder and debate. For more than a century, geologists and paleobotanists have uncovered fossilized remains of forests buried deep beneath Antarctica's icy crust. In the Beardmore Glacier region, just 500 kilometers from the South Pole, members of Robert Falcon Scott's 1912 expedition discovered leaves resembling those of beech trees. Initially dismissed as an error, later studies confirmed their authenticity. Further south, on Alexander Island and the Antarctic Peninsula, researchers found upright fossilized trees still rooted in the soil they once thrived in. Some of these trees, now stone, stood as tall as 7 meters. Around them lay layers of ancient pollen, leaves, and organic remains of a lush, temperate rainforest that existed 100 million years ago. These forests were part of a larger landscape that included meandering rivers, wetlands, and coastal plains. Despite the continent's location near the South Pole, the global climate at the time was dramatically warmer. The fossilized flora suggest temperatures in the range of 13 to 21 degrees Celsius, with no long winters of freezing cold. These conditions made it possible for evergreen species, conifers, and ferns to dominate the landscape even during long months of polar darkness. Recent drilling beneath the ice has confirmed what these surface fossils began to suggest. A team from Rice University uncovered ancient pollen deep within sediment layers off the coast of the Antarctic Peninsula. Their findings show that the area was covered in tundra as recently as 12 million years ago. Before that, a slow but steady process of glaciation had begun. This evidence paints a clear picture. Antarctica's transformation into a frozen wasteland did not happen overnight. It was gradual, and some areas remained ice-free far longer than previously thought. This history leads to a compelling question. Could there have been enough time and enough favorable conditions for early human or pre-human civilizations to exist on this continent? Mainstream archaeology strongly rejects this idea. The current scientific consensus is that Homo sapiens have only existed for about 300,000 years. and the Antarctic ice sheets have been in place for far longer, more than 14 million years based on the oldest known samples. And yet, isolated reports and controversial discoveries continue to stir debate. One of the most enduring symbols tied to the idea of ancient knowledge about Antarctica is the Piri Reis map. Created in 1513 by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis, this partial world map includes a detailed depiction of South America and a mysterious southern landmass. What makes the map extraordinary is that it appears to show the outline of a continent in the location of Antarctica, not with its present icy shape, but with a coastline resembling its actual landmass, as if seen without the ice. Supporters of the theory claim that such accuracy would have been impossible in the 16th century without access to much older source maps. The Piri Reis map, according to this view, may have been compiled using documents from a lost civilization with advanced knowledge of geography and exploration. This idea was popularized by historian Charles Hapgood, who argued that a prehistoric seafaring culture mapped the world's coastlines, including a then ice-free Antarctica, thousands of years before modern history began. Hapgood's theories, while widely criticized in academic circles, gained traction in popular culture. He suggested that the Piri Reis map might reflect Antarctica as it looked during the last ice age, possibly around 10,000 to 4000 BC, a time when, he believed, parts of the continent could have been free of ice. For many, the accuracy of the South American coastline on the Piri Reis map is undeniable for its time. The presence of a large southern landmass, whether real or theoretical, reflects an early belief in Terra Australis, the unknown southern continent. Though later explorers would confirm Antarctica's existence, the question of how ancient cartographers envisioned it and how they may have interpreted older sources is still a mystery. Adding to the intrigue, modern imaging technology has recently revealed vast ancient landscapes beneath Antarctica's thick ice cover. In East Antarctica, scientists use satellite data and ice-penetrating radar to map a region of buried valleys and ridges the size of Belgium. This landscape, once shaped by rivers and weather, remained untouched for at least 14 million years. It resembles the terrain of northern Europe, with hills, plateaus, and interconnected waterways. Researchers suggest that this ancient landscape may have once supported vegetation, and perhaps even wildlife, during warmer periods of Earth's history. But something changed drastically. The transformation of Antarctica was not a local event. It was part of a global shift in the Earth's climate, a pattern that has repeated itself many times throughout geological history. Scientists have long known that the planet's climate is not fixed. It goes through warm periods called interglacials and cold periods known as ice ages. The last major ice age began around 2.6 million years ago and reached its peak about 20,000 years ago. It ended roughly 12,000 years ago, marking the beginning of our current warm period. During these cycles, Entire regions of the Earth can become unrecognizable. Land, once green, becomes covered in snow and ice. Oceans rise and fall, and species adapt, migrate, or disappear. Antarctica's transformation from a lush landscape to an ice-covered wasteland is one of the clearest examples of this natural cycle. But there is another factor that may have played a role in this dramatic shift: the movement of Earth's axis. Known as true polar wander or crustal displacement, this theory suggests that the entire outer shell of the Earth can move over the inner layers, shifting the position of the geographic poles. Unlike the more gradual changes of axial tilt or precession, true polar wander could happen more rapidly, pulling entire continents into new climate zones. If such an event occurred in Earth's past, it could explain how Antarctica moved from a temperate zone to the South Pole. While this theory remains debated in scientific circles, there is evidence that the Earth's crust has indeed shifted in the past. Some studies of rock formations and ancient shorelines suggest that parts of the Earth's surface have relocated over time. Among the more speculative ideas surrounding such shifts is the prophecy of Edgar Cayce, often called the Sleeping Prophet. In a series of trance readings during the early 20th century, Cayce claimed that a major transformation of the Earth was coming. He spoke of dramatic changes in climate, rising seas, and the sinking of entire regions. One of his most striking predictions was that Antarctica, long thought to be lifeless and barren, would become fertile and inhabited again. Cayce believed that changes in the Earth's axis would trigger massive flooding, revealing ancient lands and wiping away modern civilizations. He spoke of a time when Antarctica would once more support life, when its frozen lands would thaw and become green again. If Cayce's prediction was somehow rooted in ancient memory, it raises a haunting possibility that an earlier civilization may have once thrived on Antarctica, only to be destroyed when the climate shifted and the poles moved. Could the ice be hiding not just the remnants of ancient forests, but also the traces of a forgotten people? Apart from all this, the Forbidden Continent hides many more secrets. One of them is Antarctica's subglacial lakes, hidden bodies of water trapped far below the surface, isolated from the outside world by kilometers of solid ice. Among them, the most famous is Lake Vostok. This vast freshwater lake is buried nearly 4,000 meters beneath the East Antarctic ice sheet. Lake Vostok has been sealed off for possibly 15 to 25 million years. In this extreme and lightless world, scientists believe life may still exist. It's one of the most remote and mysterious environments ever studied on Earth. When Russian scientists finally reached the surface of the lake in 2012, after drilling for over a decade, they broke through to a world that had not been touched by air or light since long before humans walked the planet. The water shot up through the borehole with pressure, mixing with the drilling fluids and ending the mission before any proper sample could be collected. Lake Vostok is not alone. More than 400 subglacial lakes have now been identified across the continent. Some are as large as cities, others are small and temporary, filling and draining like unseen reservoirs beneath the ice. These lakes are kept liquid, not by the sun, but by heat from the Earth's interior and the insulating pressure of the ice above. They are connected by an underground network of subglacial rivers, creating what some scientists call a frozen wetland. In recent years, expeditions have reached a few of these lakes. Lake Mercer, located beneath the West Antarctic ice sheet, revealed something extraordinary. In complete darkness and under immense pressure, scientists discovered an ecosystem filled with bacterial life. Despite the lack of sunlight, oxygen, and surface nutrients, these microorganisms were not only alive but thriving. Some researchers believe these lakes could even support higher life forms like tiny animals similar to tardigrades or microscopic worms. Even more astonishing was the discovery of Lake Enigma. This ice-covered lake has strange structures and rich microbial mats that look like carpets and tree-like formations on the lake bed. These ecosystems include bacteria that had never been seen in such environments before. Some of them survive by forming relationships with other microbes, either cooperative or parasitic. It's a level of biological complexity that surprised even the most experienced researchers. In other places, as ice shelves crack and collapse, scientists have been able to observe parts of the seafloor hidden for centuries. One such event exposed an ecosystem beneath the George VI ice shelf. In an area that had been covered by ice for possibly hundreds of years, researchers found large corals, giant sea spiders, fish, octopuses, and other animals, thriving in complete darkness. The size and age of these creatures suggest they had lived there for decades, undisturbed, relying on nutrient flows carried by deep ocean currents. In another instance, while drilling into the Filchner-Ronne ice shelf, a research team accidentally discovered a boulder on the seafloor, covered in stationary animals like sponges and other unknown filter feeders. These creatures were found 260 kilometers from the nearest source of sunlight, in a location where scientists never expected life to exist. Somehow, they were feeding, growing, and surviving in conditions thought to be completely hostile to life. Their food must have traveled immense distances on slow ocean currents, yet it was enough to sustain them. However, despite the scientific breakthroughs, access to Antarctica remains extremely limited. Harsh conditions, political agreements, and environmental protections make large-scale exploration nearly impossible. Most of the continent is still untouched. Vast regions remain unexplored. And yet, from the few windows scientists have opened into this frozen world, it's clear that Antarctica is not dead. One of the things that no scientist expected to see in the white expanse of snow and ice is a bright red waterfall. Deep in the McMurdo dry valleys of Antarctica, this is exactly what flows from the front of the Taylor Glacier. Known as blood falls, this vivid and surreal feature is one of the strangest natural phenomena on the frozen continent. Its color is so intense and unusual that for decades it stood as one of the most haunting and unexplained sights in Antarctica. At first glance, Blood Falls looks like something out of a science fiction story, as though the glacier itself is bleeding. The waterfall stands 5 stories high, and its deep red hue appears to stain the surrounding ice like an open wound. Surrounded by one of the driest and coldest deserts on Earth, this scarlet outflow is not only shocking in appearance, but also in what it represents. The scientific explanation behind Blood Falls is as fascinating as its appearance. More than 5 million years ago, long before glaciers overtook the valley, this area was submerged by the ocean. When the sea retreated, pockets of salty water were left behind and eventually sealed under layers of ice. Trapped beneath 400 meters of glacier, this ancient lake became cut off from the atmosphere, light, and oxygen. Over time, the water grew saltier and more concentrated with iron and other minerals from the surrounding rock. Today, pressure beneath the glacier pushes this iron-rich, highly saline water through a fissure in the ice. When it reaches the surface and is exposed to the oxygen in the air, the iron oxidizes in a process similar to rusting and turns a deep red. The result is the natural yet bizarre appearance of what looks like blood flowing from within the glacier. But the story of Blood Falls doesn't end with its chemistry. Hidden within its iron-rich waters is an isolated ecosystem of microscopic life. Scientists have discovered extremophile microorganisms that survive in complete darkness and without oxygen, feeding instead on iron and sulfur. These microbes have evolved in extreme isolation, offering rare insight into how life can exist in the harshest environments on Earth, and possibly in similar conditions on icy worlds like Europa or Enceladus. Yet, despite the scientific understanding, Blood Falls has remained a magnet for alternative theories. One of them suggests that Blood Falls may be a natural vent connected to a hidden underground structure, perhaps even a long-forgotten base buried beneath the ice. In this context, the red water is not just oxidized iron, but a byproduct of something deeper, perhaps artificial in nature. Others claim that the water is leaking from a biological experiment. According to them, an ancient or modern lab is hidden under the glacier, using iron and microbial life for unknown purposes. Although scientists continue to work tirelessly to explain the mysteries of Antarctica, there remain stories that defy logic and challenge what we know. Beyond the glaciers and subglacial lakes, beyond the fossils and ancient landscapes, lie stories that suggest this frozen land may still hold secrets far stranger than science has yet acknowledged. Among the most persistent legends is that of the Ningen, a creature that reportedly appears in the icy waters around Antarctica. Described as a massive pale white being with a humanoid shape, the Ningen is said to be up to 30 meters long. Witnesses from Japanese research vessels have claimed to see this strange figure rise silently from the water before disappearing again beneath the waves. Its face is often described as eerily human, with two small eyes and a wide, expressionless mouth. Some versions of the story depict the Ningen with arms and hands. Others describe it more like a smooth-finned sea creature, barely distinguishable from the icebergs that drift nearby. The first modern mention of the Ningen appeared in Japanese online forums in the early 2000s, but the legend quickly took hold in popular culture. Some believe the creature may be an unknown form of marine life, perhaps a relic from a time when Antarctica was warm and full of life. Others go further, suggesting it may be intelligent, even capable of walking on land. There are even those who speculate that governments know more about the Ningen than they admit, and that the creature's existence is deliberately kept secret due to its potential scientific or strategic significance. Another creature of legend, far older and more widespread, is the Kraken. Though most commonly associated with Norse mythology and the North Atlantic, the Southern Ocean has its own versions of this sea monster. In 2016, satellite imagery near Deception Island showed a long shadow in the water that many believed resembled the legendary beast. While scientists identified the object as a sea stack, a rock formation rising from the ocean, the resemblance was enough. Given that colossal squid, the largest of their kind, inhabit these depths, it is not hard to understand why the idea of giant sea creatures continues to flourish in the Antarctic's dark waters. But not all tales from Antarctica are about monsters. Some are far more unsettling. Throughout the 20th century, there have been accounts from explorers and scientists of strange sensations, feelings of being watched, of unseen presences walking nearby in the snow. The continent's long winters of complete darkness and the extreme isolation of remote research stations create an atmosphere ripe for the paranormal. One of the most famous stories comes from Sir Ernest Shackleton himself. He was the legendary British explorer who led multiple expeditions to Antarctica during the heroic age of Antarctic exploration. In 1916, during a desperate trek across South Georgia Island, he reported the sensation that a fourth member was walking with his small group, even though only 3 were present. Later, both of his companions confirmed they had felt the same. Other stories are darker. One of the most enduring tales dates back to the early 1840s. According to reports from the time, a British whaling ship named Hope was navigating near the South Shetland Islands when its crew spotted a vessel trapped in the ice. Upon approach, they discovered a schooner identified as the Jenny, frozen solid in the surrounding pack ice. What they found inside would mark the story as one of the most unsettling in polar lore. The crew of the Jenny was reportedly still on board, dead, but frozen in place, upright at their stations. According to entries in the ship's logbook, the final message had been written by the captain himself. May 4th, 1823. No food for 71 days. I am the only one left alive. The Hope documented the discovery, but left the vessel undisturbed, locked in the ice. The Jenny was never seen again. Another frequently recounted account comes from one of the driest places on Earth, the McMurdo Dry Valleys. Scattered across this cold desert are a number of abandoned huts and outposts left behind by early expeditions. Over the decades, personnel stationed nearby have occasionally reported hearing unexplained noises, footsteps in the snow, doors creaking open, and voices carried by the wind. According to some accounts, researchers who entered one such hut claimed to feel a strange presence, as if being watched. Others reported tools going missing, only to reappear later in the exact spot they were last seen. Scientists often explain these experiences as the result of extreme isolation, harsh environmental conditions, and the psychological effects of working in one of the most desolate places on the planet. Prolonged exposure to silence, cold, and endless daylight or darkness can affect the human mind, leading to auditory illusions and feelings of unease. Still, not everyone accepts this explanation. For them, the fact that the eerie and unexplained blood falls is located in this very same region feels like too much of a coincidence. Interest in Antarctica and its secrets has not been recent. Long before modern satellites and international treaties, the frozen continent captured the attention of explorers, scientists, and even the most controversial regimes of the 20th century. Among them was Nazi Germany. In the years leading up to the Second World War, the Antarctic frontier became the focus of an ambitious and largely forgotten expedition that would later become the center of countless theories. In 1938, Adolf Hitler authorized a secret Antarctic mission. The goal, on the surface, was resource-based. Germany, preparing for the possibility of war, was searching for ways to reduce its dependence on foreign imports. Whale oil, essential for producing margarine, soap, and other fat-based products, was in high demand. Until then, Germany relied heavily on Norwegian exports. But Hitler's war plan needed self-sufficiency, and for that, the Southern Ocean offered potential. The expedition was organized quickly. On December 17, 1938, the vessel MS Schwabenland left the port of Hamburg. On board were 82 men, a mix of scientists, naval officers, technicians, and one Nazi Party representative. Their destination was a vast, unclaimed territory in Queen Maud Land, located between British and Norwegian sectors. Over the following weeks, the ship reached Antarctica's icy coastline and launched its two Dornier Wal seaplanes into the skies. The aircraft surveyed enormous stretches of land, dropping aluminum darts marked with swastikas to assert territorial claim. The Germans called this new territory Neuschwabenland, New Swabia, naming it after the ship itself. In total, the expedition mapped over 600,000 square kilometers, significantly expanding the known geography of that part of the continent. Some of the photographs were taken in color, a rarity at the time, and many remain valuable scientific records. Officially, the mission ended in February 1939, just months before the outbreak of war. The Schwabenland returned to Hamburg, carrying thousands of aerial photographs and geological observations. Much of the collected data, however, was either lost in the chaos of the war or remained unpublished for decades. Some documents surfaced only in the late 1950s. The rest, according to some researchers, may have been deliberately hidden. It is here that the mystery begins. For years, the 1938-39 expedition was remembered as a short scientific mission with limited geopolitical consequences. But after the war, whispers began to grow. Questions were raised about what the Nazis truly hoped to find or build in Antarctica. In the shadow of global conflict and in the wake of the Holocaust, a new narrative began to emerge. Some believed that Germany's interest in Antarctica went beyond whale oil and maps. According to post-war rumors, the real purpose of the expedition was to establish a permanent foothold on the continent, a hidden base far from the reach of enemy nations. This alleged installation, buried deep beneath the ice, would serve as a safe haven, research facility, or even a last redoubt for the Nazi elite in the event of defeat in Europe. The idea of secret Nazi bases beneath Antarctica may sound improbable, yet a few events fed these suspicions. In July 1945, just 2 months after Germany's surrender, the German submarine U-530 appeared unexpectedly at the Argentine naval base of Mar del Plata. The next month, another submarine, U-977, arrived under similar mysterious circumstances. The commanders gave no satisfactory explanation for their long journeys or what they had been doing in the South Atlantic. Some believed they had delivered high-ranking Nazis or valuable cargo to a hidden outpost before surrendering. To this day, no physical evidence of a Nazi base in Antarctica has ever been found. No tunnels, no abandoned structures, no hidden chambers carved into the bedrock. But parts of Neuschwabenland, especially the Schirmacher oasis, first spotted by the Germans, remain active scientific zones. The region now hosts international research stations, including those of Russia and India. The story deepened with Operation High Jump. In 1946 and 1947, the United States launched the largest Antarctic military expedition in history. Led by Admiral Richard E. Byrd, it involved over 4,700 men, 13 ships, and dozens of aircraft. Officially, it was a scientific mission aimed at training and mapping. But the scale and urgency of the operation sparked speculation that the US Navy was responding to more than just geography. Some theorists suggest that Byrd's fleet was sent to investigate or eliminate a Nazi presence still active on the continent. From the outset, Operation High Jump was unlike any Antarctic expedition before it. Organized in a time of uneasy peace, just months after the end of World War II, it was both ambitious and unprecedented. The force was divided into 3 naval groups: Eastern, Western, and Central, each with its own aircraft and icebreaker support. Their goal was to map as much of the continent as possible using aerial photography and to test military equipment under polar conditions. Rear Admiral Richard H. Cruzen commanded the task force. But it was Byrd, now an experienced polar explorer and a decorated naval officer, who once again became the public face of America's presence in Antarctica. The operation established a base known as Little America 4 and conducted extensive aerial surveys. By the end of the expedition, more than 1.5 million square miles of Antarctica had been photographed, and thousands of images had been collected. However, it wasn't the photography that drew global attention. It was what happened behind the scenes, and what Byrd may have encountered. According to the official record, Operation High Jump lasted from December 1946 to March 1947. But the mission was cut short, ending weeks earlier than scheduled. This abrupt departure gave rise to a wave of questions, reports of damaged aircraft, unexplained losses, and unusual encounters fueled rumors that something had gone wrong. Or perhaps something had been found. Among the more persistent theories is that the mission had a hidden agenda: to locate a rumored underground Nazi base near the Queen Maud land region, the same territory explored by the German New Swabia expedition. Proponents of this theory point to the high number of military personnel involved and the presence of advanced technology, including aircraft capable of long-range reconnaissance. They also reference unexplained air crashes, including the fatal loss of the Martin PBM-5 flying boat George I, which claimed the lives of 3 crewmen. In the years following Operation High Jump, rumors began to circulate that Byrd had encountered something extraordinary during one of his reconnaissance flights. According to certain accounts, his aircraft entered an area that should not have existed, a temperate zone amid the ice, a landscape of green valleys and warm air. Some sources claim he saw not just a change in climate, but in reality itself: unknown flying objects in the sky, and even contact with beings from an advanced subterranean civilization. These accounts were not part of any official report. But in the 1960s, a document began to circulate, allegedly a secret diary kept by Admiral Byrd during the expedition. In it, Byrd describes an encounter with an aircraft unlike any he had seen before. His instruments fail, his radio is taken over, he is guided to a landing strip in a hidden valley. There, he claims, he is welcomed by tall beings with luminous eyes and advanced knowledge. They take him to a city beneath the Earth's surface, a place they call Agartha. Agartha is a mythical kingdom said to exist within the Earth itself, a concept tied closely to the hollow Earth theory. According to these beliefs, our planet is not a solid sphere, but a layered shell containing vast inner spaces, cities, and even oceans. Agartha, the largest of these subterranean realms, is described as a civilization more ancient and advanced than our own. The people of Agartha, sometimes called the Old Ones, are said to possess technology far beyond what is known on the surface, including vehicles that can fly without fuel and the ability to manipulate natural forces. This idea has appeared in stories and myths across many cultures. From Shambhala in Tibetan tradition to the underworld cities of the Mayans and Celts, there is a recurring motif of hidden civilizations beneath the earth. In the case of Agartha, the story gained traction in the 19th century, with French and German occult writers spreading the tale of a lost inner world. But it was the supposed connection with Admiral Byrd that brought it into the modern age and the realm of Antarctica. According to the diary, the Agarthians warned Byrd about the growing danger of nuclear weapons and the direction of human society. They claimed to have observed surface civilization for centuries and feared its destructive potential. Byrd was told to return to his superiors with their message, a call for peace and balance, and then sent back through the ice. And yet, this document has never been confirmed as authentic, even though many believe in it. Some people think the diary is fake. They say Byrd never said anything like that himself, and there's no official proof that such an event happened. Still, the story lived on, helped by the secrecy around parts of Operation High Jump, and some things Byrd said in interviews. In a rare interview published in Chile in March 1947, Byrd talked about how important Antarctica could be in the future. He warned that one day, the US might be attacked from over the polar regions. Some people think this was his way of hinting at what he saw down there. As the Cold War grew stronger, the US sent more missions to Antarctica. Operation Windmill came in 1947 and 1948. Then came Operation Deep Freeze during the International Geophysical Year in 1957 and 1958. Byrd was still involved, but his health was getting worse. He died in 1957, just a few months after his last trip to Antarctica. To this day, the full story of Operation High Jump remains a subject of speculation. The mission accomplished significant scientific objectives and expanded the mapped regions of Antarctica. But its military scale and rapid conclusion have kept theorists questioning. Was it truly just a training exercise? Or did the US Navy uncover something it could not explain or could not control? In the final years of World War II, and especially after it ended, strange stories began to spread. These stories spoke of unusual flying machines, objects that didn't look like any aircraft people had seen before. Witnesses described them as silent, incredibly fast, and shaped like discs. At first, many thought these were just rumors, but in the years following the war, reports of unidentified flying objects began to appear across the world. This growing mystery led some researchers to connect two powerful ideas: the rise of UFO sightings and the secret technology of Nazi Germany. During the war, German scientists were working on highly advanced weapons, jet aircraft, long-range rockets, and experimental propulsion systems. At the same time, parts of the Nazi leadership were deeply interested in the occult, ancient myths, and hidden powers. Within that world of secrecy and belief, certain underground groups are often mentioned. One of the most famous is the Thule Society, which focused on Aryan mythology and the idea of a hidden inner Earth. Alongside it, another group began to appear in these stories, the Vril Society. This group was said to believe in a mysterious force called Vril, an energy source that could power machines and enhance the mind. According to these stories, members of the Vril Society practiced meditation and rituals to contact non-human intelligences, possibly beings from other planets or even from within the Earth itself. Some theories suggest that these ideas were not only spiritual, but also applied to real technology. Certain Nazi scientists are said to have tried turning these beliefs into working machines. 3 names appear frequently in these stories: Haunebu, Vril, and Die Glocke, meaning the bell. These were supposedly experimental aircraft, disc-shaped, silent, and powered by unknown forms of energy, possibly even anti-gravity. Of all these, Die Glocke is the most well-known. It was described as a bell-shaped machine that gave off a strange glow and made eerie noises. Some claimed it could fly without wings. Others believed it had the power to manipulate time or space. Much of this comes from later writers, and there is little physical evidence. But the idea remains one of the most famous parts of the Nazi UFO theory. After the war, these stories only grew stronger. In 1947, just 2 years after Germany's defeat, the world saw the first major wave of UFO sightings, beginning with the famous events in the United States. Some researchers began to wonder if these objects were from space or advanced machines made by German scientists. That same year, the United States launched Operation Paperclip, a secret program that brought hundreds of German scientists to America. These scientists, many of whom worked on Nazi weapons programs, went on to help develop US rocket systems and advanced aircraft. Some believe they also brought hidden knowledge about flying disc technology. A few even think that some of the UFO sightings were test flights of secret machines built from Nazi designs. The Soviet Union also captured scientists, documents, and equipment. Both superpowers were racing to master any technology that could give them an edge during the Cold War. If disc-shaped aircraft really existed, they may have ended up in top-secret military programs in either the US or the USSR. But one part of the theory goes even deeper. Some believe that the Nazis didn't build these machines alone, that they had help. According to these stories, Nazi leaders made contact with non-human beings. These beings, whether from another planet or another dimension, shared their knowledge in secret. The connection was said to happen through meetings, through dreams, or by mental communication. According to some, after the war, top Nazi scientists and leaders escaped to their hidden bases in Antarctica, continuing their work in secret. In the decades that followed, books, magazines, and television shows helped spread these ideas. Theories linking Nazi science, UFOs, and aliens grew more detailed and more dramatic. Some claim the Nazis worked directly with extraterrestrials. Others say they discovered lost technology from ancient civilizations, remnants of a forgotten world. Historians agree that Nazi Germany was far ahead of its time in many areas of weapons development. Jet fighters, advanced rockets, and unusual aircraft were real. But when it comes to flying discs, anti-gravity machines, or alien contact, there is no solid evidence. Most of the documents that describe these things are missing, unverified, or never existed in the first place. However, stories like this have never disappeared. If anything, the age of satellites and high-resolution imaging has brought even more attention to the mysterious corners of Antarctica. Today, sightings of strange objects, unusual formations, and unexplained shapes on the icy continent are more frequent than ever. With the help of platforms like Google Earth, everyday users around the world are now able to scan the frozen wilderness from their screens. In recent years, one particular image from the southern Atlantic sector of Antarctica drew international attention. It appeared to show a long, straight trail marked in the ice, ending in a massive dark object resting at an angle. The image quickly spread online, with many calling it the crash site of a large, unidentified flying object. The visible trail suggested movement across the ice, and the shape of the object, partially buried, half exposed, was enough to ignite a wave of theories. Some believed it was a secret aircraft. Others suggested something not of this world. Another satellite photo showed a strange oval structure half covered in snow, standing out against the smooth white surface. Its rounded shape and symmetrical design made it seem artificial. Some online sleuths claimed it looked like a large disk, possibly even a buried craft, slowly being uncovered by melting ice. Others noted its smooth, curved edges and proposed that it might not be a machine, but part of a larger hidden structure. Theories began to spread, suggesting it could be an entrance to an underground facility. But not all sightings appeared technological in nature. One of the most widely discussed satellite discoveries resembled a massive face staring up from the snow. Deep in the southeastern region of Antarctica, people spotted what looked like the frozen features of a large head, with eyes, a nose, and a mouth, all carved into the white surface. The image was quickly labeled an alien face by those who saw it, while others compared it to mythical beings or ancient statues. The idea that something or someone had left their mark in the ice began circulating rapidly. For some, it was another sign that Antarctica held the remnants of a lost past. For others, it was a modern sign of watchers still present beneath the ice. Elsewhere on the continent, a satellite view of a lonely iceberg caught attention when it appeared to resemble a large ship, tilted and half-submerged in the sea ice. From a certain angle, it looked eerily like a cruise liner made of ice, complete with what looked like windows, a deck, and even funnels. While no one claimed it was an actual vessel, the sharp, geometric lines of the formation led to suggestions that it had been shaped or perhaps constructed by intelligent design. Theories ranged from secret engineering experiments to abandoned relics from an unknown past, locked in ice and slowly being revealed. Other photos and on-the-ground reports described perfectly preserved seal bodies found miles away from the ocean, high in the mountains. These mummified remains, sometimes hundreds or even thousands of years old, were found far from any known migration paths. No one fully understands how or why the animals ended up there, or what drew them so far inland. Some believe they were chasing glimmers of light on distant glaciers, mistaking them for water. Others suggest that the remains mark something more unusual, perhaps a change in climate long ago, or paths that existed when the land was different. To some, they are natural puzzles. To others, they are silent clues left by the past. Scientists around the world continue to offer logical explanations for many of the strange stories tied to Antarctica. They emphasize science, weather conditions, and geology. But for many others, the explanations are not convincing. The fact that Antarctica remains one of the most restricted and heavily controlled places on Earth is, for them, proof enough that someone is hiding the truth. The roots of this suspicion lead back to one key event: the signing of the Antarctic Treaty. On December 1st, 1959, just as the Cold War was beginning to heat up, 12 nations came together in Washington, D.C. to sign a treaty that would change the future of Antarctica. These countries, among them the United States, the Soviet Union, and the United Kingdom, had all been involved in scientific research during the International Geophysical Year of 1957 to 58. What they signed was short in length, just 14 articles. But the agreement would soon become one of the most unusual and effective diplomatic arrangements in modern history. The Antarctic Treaty officially came into force on June 23, 1961. It declared that the entire continent south of the 60th parallel would be used only for peaceful purposes. Military activity was banned, so were nuclear tests and the dumping of radioactive waste. Scientific research was to be free and open to all signatories. Countries could not make new territorial claims or expand existing ones, and anyone conducting research had to share their findings with the world. At first glance, it all seemed like a noble effort, a way to preserve a unique environment for science and peace. Over the years, more countries signed on. Today, over 50 nations are part of the agreement. But it is exactly this sudden cooperation, at a time when many of these countries were otherwise in deep conflict, that has led some to question the true purpose of the treaty. The treaty was signed just 14 years after World War II. The Cold War was in full swing. The United States and the Soviet Union were competing in arms, space, and global influence. Yet, in the midst of this intense rivalry, these same countries somehow agreed to completely demilitarize the largest unexplored landmass on Earth. For some, that timing feels too convenient, and for theorists, it raises one central question: what exactly was happening in Antarctica that was so important? Today, Antarctica is not technically off-limits, but access is strictly controlled. Only a small number of scientists are allowed to live and work there, and even they need special approval, training, and equipment. Tourists can visit, but only in specific coastal areas and under close supervision. The vast interior, covering millions of square kilometers, remains almost completely inaccessible. There are areas where aircraft are not allowed to fly. Certain regions are marked as off-limits due to environmental protection. Research stations can only be visited with permission. All of these rules are part of what makes Antarctica feel like a forbidden world. Some believe that alien technology lies buried under the ice. Others think Antarctica was once home to a lost civilization, perhaps connected to Atlantis or other ancient myths. There are even those who argue that governments are conducting secret experiments there, far from public oversight. The secrecy, the surveillance, the restrictions, all of it in their view, point to the truth being kept from us. Over time, the Antarctic Treaty expanded into what is now called the Antarctic Treaty System. It includes additional agreements and special environmental rules. It even has its own secretariat, based in Buenos Aires. Every year, member countries meet to discuss science, safety, and preservation. But again, these meetings are not open to the public. And while many argue that the system protects Antarctica, others say it protects something else entirely. While for most people, Antarctica is nothing more than a forbidden continent, for scientists, it is much more than that. For them, Antarctica is a huge natural laboratory, a place where the past is preserved in ice and where the future of our planet may already be written. Despite the many myths, conspiracies, and legends, Antarctica's true importance may be even more extraordinary, not because of what it hides, but because of what it reveals. For decades, scientific missions to Antarctica have given us a clearer understanding of the world we live in. Deep within its thick ice sheet, more than 4 kilometers deep in some places, are trapped layers of ancient air. Each layer is a time capsule, holding data on temperature, atmospheric gases, and environmental changes that go back over 1 million years. By drilling into the ice, researchers can study Earth's climate history and compare it to today's rapidly warming world. The discovery of the ozone hole above Antarctica in 1985 was just one example of how Antarctic science can uncover invisible but global threats. And while the ice offers a window into the past, Antarctica's future may be shaped by something far less expected: invaders. These invaders are real, and they are alive. Scientists now warn of an increase in non-native species reaching Antarctica, carried by ships, aircraft, food supplies, and even people's shoes. A single housefly that sneaks aboard a research vessel or a seed stuck to a jacket can become a serious biosecurity threat. In 2014, a hydroponic facility at Australia's Davis Station was overrun by a tiny alien species, a collembolan, or springtail. These invertebrates had never been seen in that part of the continent. They multiplied quickly in the warm, moist environment and were discovered floating across the water surface. Scientists responded immediately. The entire facility was shut down, sterilized, and eventually removed from the site. It was treated like a viral outbreak. In this fragile ecosystem, even the smallest intruder can cause unpredictable damage. Other invasions have been harder to detect. A mushroom fly found in the sewage system of a research station refused to disappear for over 20 years. Marine species, such as mussels from distant parts of the world, have also been found along the Antarctic Peninsula, likely transported by the hulls of tourist ships or research vessels. Though small, these creatures can change entire ecosystems if allowed to spread. With warmer temperatures melting the outer edges of Antarctica, many areas once protected by ice may soon become accessible to humans and to pests. For scientists, these biological incursions are not just practical problems, they are warnings. The balance of life in Antarctica is delicate, evolved over millions of years in isolation. And now, that isolation is breaking down. Researchers are racing against time to document native species before they are pushed out by newcomers. Antarctica may be the last place on Earth untouched by industrial development, but that protection is no longer guaranteed. Some researchers have even suggested that the invasion of non-native life might offer clues to a much broader question. What happens when two ecosystems or two worlds collide? In this sense, the arrival of foreign organisms in Antarctica mirrors the curiosity behind theories of alien life. When scientists speak of alien species, they do not mean beings from other planets, but the concept is not far off. These organisms are unknown, arriving from outside, changing the environment in unpredictable ways. As Antarctica warms and becomes more accessible, the continent is entering a new phase. Tourism is growing. Supply routes are expanding. The barriers that once protected it, the bitter cold, the violent seas, the sheer remoteness, are starting to weaken. For science, this means opportunity and danger in equal measure. Another big question scientists are trying to answer on this hidden continent might be the most important one for the whole planet. Over the past century, average global temperatures have risen at an alarming rate. But few places have felt this change as deeply as Antarctica. The Antarctic Peninsula, in particular, is warming faster than nearly anywhere else on Earth. In some regions, temperatures have increased by nearly 3 degrees Celsius in just the last 50 years. As a result, glaciers are retreating, sea ice is melting earlier each year, and entire ice shelves have begun to collapse. These changes are not just local, they are global. Antarctica holds about 90% of the world's fresh water in its thick ice sheets. If this ice melts, sea levels around the world will rise. The complete melting of the West Antarctic ice sheet alone could raise global sea levels by more than 3 meters. While a full collapse might take centuries, the process may have already started. And as the ice recedes, scientists are starting to ask a question that once seemed unthinkable. Will Antarctica become green again? It may sound impossible, but this continent has not always been covered in ice. Around 100 million years ago, during the age of the dinosaurs, Antarctica was a warm and forested land. Fossil records show that the continent once supported rich ecosystems with trees, ferns, and even wildfires. Beneath today's thick layers of ice lie the remnants of ancient rivers, valleys, and entire landscapes frozen in time. If the world continues to warm at its current rate, parts of Antarctica, especially the coastlines, may slowly return to those earlier conditions. Some scientists believe that by the end of this century, warmer temperatures and increased rainfall could allow for grasslands and hardy plants to grow along the fringes of the continent. Invasive species like bluegrass have already been spotted on the peninsula, and colonies of Gentoo penguins, which prefer milder conditions, have begun moving farther south. In the next 200 years, experts suggest that certain areas, especially near the coast, may become mild enough to support limited agriculture. Barley, potatoes, and grazing animals could survive short growing seasons in carefully chosen locations. According to scientists, it is even possible that small human colonies could one day exist there without relying entirely on imported food. However, this potential greening comes with a price. The melting of ice sheets will drastically alter Earth's climate systems. Rising seas will threaten coastal cities across the globe. Ecosystems that have survived in isolation for millions of years could be overwhelmed by new species. And the very landscapes that draw scientists to Antarctica, the untouched wilderness, the frozen silence, may be lost forever. Antarctica's extreme conditions, including its months of darkness and low solar angles, will continue to limit what is possible, even under extreme warming. For most of the continent, especially deep inland, it will remain too cold, too dry, and too dark to support anything like traditional farming or long-term settlements. But along its edges, where the sun shines longer and the temperatures rise higher, life may begin to return. The future of Antarctica is still uncertain. Some believe it may become Earth's last refuge, a cold sanctuary for life as equatorial regions grow hotter. Others warn that once we lose control of ice melt, the consequences will move far beyond what we can predict. What is certain is that the world is watching. Antarctica, long seen as a frozen relic, is becoming a mirror of human impact and a symbol of what is to come. Scientists will continue to monitor its changes from remote bases and satellite eyes, searching the ice for clues not only to our past, but to our future. The forbidden continent is no longer as silent as it once was. Its glaciers are cracking, its weather is shifting, and its secrets are beginning to thaw. Until the ice fully reveals what it has hidden, Antarctica remains the last great unknown, a land of silence, science, and suspicion. If this journey sparked questions or theories of your own, share them in the comments. And if you believe more people should discover Antarctica's secrets, like the video and help spread the word. Keep your minds open, and until we meet again,